Okay, this video is a comparison of America in the 1970s and 1980s versus now. And the purpose of the video is to help you to be able to see different perspectives. Like one of the things I've noticed is, I know a lot of people from Europe. I know a lot of people from the United States, from Ireland, and from some other places too. And what I see in Puerto Rico is people that are not from the United States, they tend to be a lot more with it than people from the United States. And what I mean by that is, they've got the other perspective. They can see things from a European perspective, an Irish perspective, a Puerto Rican perspective, a Polish perspective, a Ukrainian perspective, whatever, because they lived in a different situation. A lot of Americans, they remind me like of a dodo bird. They only have one way of understanding things, and it makes them kind of stupid. Also, religion makes people smarter, because with religion, you can see the point of view from the religion as well as from your own. So I'm going to talk about some things here to help give you perspective, because if you can only see things one way, very often you end up being a chump. So anyways, the dodo bird, for example, they lived on this island of Mauritius, and they had lost the ability to fly. They laid their eggs on the ground because they didn't have any natural predators. And so when humans came to the island with their dogs and cats and potentially other animals, livestock, the dodo just went extinct. Look at its name. It's scientific Latin classification name, Rhaphis cucullatus. I thought that was funny, cucullatus. All right. So, anyways, all right. So now here's the comparison, and with this comparison slide, okay, I didn't get it to switch yet. Here, I'll switch it now. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. That's why. Sorry about that. It took me a sec to get the slide switched. Here we go. All right, so these slides are color-coded. This vertical column here is how it used to be. This vertical column is how it is now. So the blue corresponds to the blue. Back in the 1970s and 80s, America was relatively rich, okay? I had a lot of friends in high school. They had no interest in going to college. They knew they could get a job in construction or something like that, and they would make plenty of money. They'd buy themselves a nice house, have a nice wife, and they would be just fine in a good suburb. Okay, whereas nowadays, in most families, the husband and the wife both have to work. Back in those days, hardly anybody was divorced. Now most people are divorced. The majority of marriages are divorced. Okay, the official motto of the entire country, the United States, was "In God We Trust." We used to say the Pledge of Allegiance to God and country in school, okay? We pledged to God in school. Nowadays, students are told there's no God. They're taught atheistic Darwinism. And it's against the law to say the Pledge of Allegiance and God in school. Prayer in school is against the law, okay? Also, we were all taught America was a melting pot. People come from other countries. Like my parents both came from other countries, and they became Americans, okay? My mom, back in those days, she thought, why even bother learning Spanish? She grew up in Puerto Rico. Why learn Spanish? You're in America now. This is the best place. Everybody thought America... And it was the best place in the world. Everybody in the whole world wanted to move to America, okay? So anyways, on the American official USA seal, it said, E pluribus unum, out of many one, the melting pot. People come to America from wherever they might be, and they're no longer some hyphenated American. They're an American, okay? That's what you do. Whereas now, the modern culture says, oh, forget about the melting pot. Everything is we need diversity, multiculturalism, and Caucasian heterosexual Christians are scapegoated, and they're going to be scapegoated until they go extinct. I think the long-term goal is to try to get rid of them and make an atheistic Darwinism as the base of the culture. But I think that's going to be to the diminution of the United States because, if you have a godless culture, then people have no rights. You've heard me talk about that before, so I don't want to bore you with it. But, are we going to end up going back to a biblical worldview? Or are we going to end up like China with a social credit score and no individual rights, no freedom of speech or anything? So anyways, getting back to it. The movies had feeling and personality and emotion in them. Wonderful Life. At Christmas, Christmas Carol, Amadeus. Nowadays, there aren't any movies you could take your family to. Nothing. If the old joke is if something good happens in a Hollywood movie, it's by accident. Okay, they're so vulgar. I would never take my family. I would never go myself. I don't own a TV for like 40 years. I haven't one since I was a kid at home with my parents. It's all crap. I don't go to movie theaters anymore because it's all crap. I mean, by definition, anything from Hollywood nowadays is bad. Also, society used to be much more macho and masculine. When I grew up as a kid, we watched movies like James Bond. He was a hero. Sean Connery was the best James Bond. Patton with George Scott, Charlton Heston movie, Ten Commandments, all the Sylvester Stallone, Rocky stuff, and Rambo, the Mel Gibson movies, the Clint Eastwood movies. These were all these muy macho, heroes, okay? Nowadays, the movies, they consider that all toxic masculinity. America's being pussified, okay? They call that toxic masculinity. And on top of that, there's just sort of these were intelligent movies. Nowadays, it'll be sort of just action scenes and very little vocabulary, very little character development. They're so-called flat characters rather than round characters, if you will. And it's just action and special effects. It's vulgar and ignorant. It's designed for people who can barely speak English. I mean, they're not sophisticated movies. So again, I don't go to any of that stuff. The comedians were really funny. Back in those days, Sam Kinison was so funny. His style of delivery. Eddie Murphy routines, one of the funniest comedy routines of all. Chris Rock used to have great comedy routines. Rodney Dangerfield, too, the patron saint of married men. Nowadays, any of this stuff would all be considered inappropriate. They get in trouble. So there's like this pretend, attitude that we've progressed. The only thing we're progressing is progressing towards poverty and slavery. Okay, anyways, free speech was taken for granted. You could say tons of things you can't say publicly nowadays. Free speech no longer really exists, except, partially. There's a few video channels at outside places, but it is really strongly being diminished. Every day I hear about more and more stuff being, banned and blocked and all that stuff. Art paintings are really declining. They were already getting bad when I was young, but they're much, much, much worse now. We still had some great artists, like the work of Arnold Freiberg, the work of Robert Bateman, Bev Doolittle. They're fantastic artists. Whereas now, the art museums are a joke. Modern art's all fake, a bunch of junk. Okay, can you imagine if one of the Renaissance painters came to modern America and he looked at these modern art museums? He would think that we were the most disgusting, pathetic, retarded morons. Modern art is fake and a bunch of crap, and you should say that anytime you encounter it because, it represents our society. Look what they have. You used to have cathedrals, beautiful buildings, the most beautiful buildings ever made, okay, with beautiful statuary. You go to a modern building, it's going to look like an animal cage with a statue of a turd in front, is like what Tom Wolfe used to say. It's disgusting. It's insulting. That should not represent us. It's godless. It's soulless. It's crap, okay? And people should say that because as a society develops, consensus opinions, that determines sort of what happens to that society. And if you, think that modern art is representative of our society, that's a big insult. That's a total lack of self-respect. A child could do any of that stuff. Okay, America used to be over 90% Christian, even by 1990 it was, all right? Now it's only about 64% Christian, and a big part of that is more and more Christians are declaring themselves as atheists, and I think it's in part because they sense that there's growing and much worsening Christian persecution, okay? So they're sort of like hiding their Christianity, if they will. That's, I think, the common trend, okay? The rainbow used to be a symbol of a heavy metal rock and roll group. Rainbow, they got songs like Catch the Rainbow. They got a lot of great songs. Richie Blackmore on guitar, Ronnie James Dio with the vocals. They were an incredibly great group. Also, to me, growing up, a rainbow was like the symbol. The Irish leprechaun would slide down into a pot of gold. They'd always have one in Noah's Ark. It was sort of this sign of renewal. The storm was over. Whereas now it kind of means something very different, okay? The vocabulary, the meaning of words to some extent is being changed. Boy Scouts for boys and girls. Boy Scouts were for boys, Girl Scouts were for girls. And that was a good thing. It was the all-American thing to do, to be a Boy Scout, okay? And you learn some good things there. A lot of very successful people, brag about becoming an Eagle Scout when they were young. Nowadays, Boy Scouts are canceled. I don't even know. I have any idea what's going on with Girl Scouts. A man was a man, a woman was a woman. I just read these couple books on George Washington, and that's all there was. The men went and fought. The women, stayed home or, helped cook or something, but that's all there was. Nowadays, I don't even know what the latest definition is of a man or woman. I mean, I've been out of med school for about 30 years, and I don't even know what the official definition is anymore. Before, it used to be pretty obvious. A guy's got a Johnson, a woman's got a Virginia, and that's all there was to it. And, the chromosome stuff, nowadays, I don't even know what the definition is. Okay, the American family meant mother and father. They were usually married, and they often had a lot of kids. When I was a kid, all you had to do was go outside and start knocking on your neighbor's door, and there were a bunch of kids, and we play all kinds of sports in the street, okay? There was Tons of kids all over the place. You didn't need a ride from your parents to go to your friend's house. You just knocked on a local door, you got on your bicycle and rode a couple blocks away, and there were lots of kids around. Whereas nowadays, parents have to arrange a play date, make a bunch of phone calls, drive the child to a friend's house. It's like a big deal because there's not that many kids anymore. Everybody's got these small families. Well, it's okay. Soon enough, the border will be open and there'll be tons more kids again, okay? All right, what else? Your car used to be your car. I had a cousin who was really good at fixing cars. And he would just be working on the car. He could change the oil. He could fix most engine problems and body problems. It was your car. You could take it to whoever you wanted, to have the oil changed or have something else fixed on it. It was sort of a generic thing. Whereas nowadays, your car is quite different. Your car is like electronic computerized. It's got a GPS, tracks you everywhere you go. Those OnStar things record your voice. Your phone tracks you everywhere you go. Electronic toll booth payment tracks you everywhere you go. And now the big push is for electronic cars, which will be, somebody could take that over with a remote control. They can crash you into a wall. They could turn your car off. You got limited fuel distance. Who knows how well that's going to work out? I mean, Elon Musk, he's done some good things, but this idea of electronic cars, to me, it sounds crazy, okay? And then this idea that cars are going to drive, to me, that sounds crazy. Think about it when you're at a light. You look at the other person's eyes. Do they wave you ahead with their hand? It's a human interaction, a big part of knowing if they're going to go or not. It's not all just mechanical. And you're going to let something mechanical that can't understand a person's emotions and signals be in charge of your driving? Would you really want to be in a car like that? And of course they're going to claim it's better. They just won't tell you about all the accidents that happen. That sounds crazy to me. Automatic driving car. Okay, the next thing is when I was growing up, everybody said the Pope is Catholic. The old joke is the Pope Catholic? Does a bear, poop in the woods? Whereas nowadays, the Pope's not Catholic. Okay? Luther said the Pope of his day was the Antichrist. And the modern Pope, he is the Antichrist. I mean, the guy does one jerk-off thing after another. He really should not be the Pope. Okay? And now, like I said, is America going to return to a God-based worldview where everyone is part divine, part beast, and has intrinsic natural rights? Or are we going to go down the path of atheistic Darwinism, whereby humans are just defined as being, talking apes, talking monkeys, and therefore not entitled to any rights whatsoever? I hope not. I hope things are going to get better. But I think it's good for people, especially younger people who don't know any history, have little perspective on, the changes in America the last couple of years. And, some people say this is progress. I don't think this is progress. Like I said, this is progress towards poverty and slavery. This is not progress.